I'm 11 books behind, plus the books I was supposed to read in December, which would have been 6. So I'm in trouble. Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Just another struggling writer. The Beleaguered Author's one-stop shop for commiseration and hopefully inspiration. My name is Carrie Scher, and I am just another struggling writer. Well, today I am bringing you a cozy reset, one that I sorely missed last month when I probably needed it most, but I am glad to get back to. And it is especially important as we close out 2024 and prepare for 2025, which is scary in and of itself. But I like to use December as sort of a beta test for what I intend to do in the new year. Testing out new habits, new video ideas, and stretching my goals. But before we get into all that, I first want to take a look back at really the last 2 months, because I didn't get to reset in November, and reflect on my successes and areas of growth. Starting with writing. As you know, in October, I was hit pretty hard by a depressive episode that ate up most of the month and even the first part of November, which was really disappointing because October was supposed to be the beginning of the draft. I started out really strong at the end of September, but after the first couple of weeks, the brain chemistry really got to me and I fell off pretty hard, which is disappointing because my ultimate goal was to try and finish this draft in 3 months. And unfortunately, it just didn't happen. Not only did I stop writing completely during the depressive episode, but even when I was writing, I wasn't quite keeping up with the pace that was required in order to meet that deadline. But it did help me realize that word-based goals, word count-based goals, aren't that motivating for me. In fact, they are a great way to burn me out, which I think is part of what contributed to the depressive episode. I wanted to keep going. I didn't have the energy. I would push myself too hard and then I would feel tired. And then it was just a self-defeating cycle. So while I didn't do nearly as much writing as I hoped, by now I should be at the 60,000 word mark and I am just over 20,000. I learned a lot about my capabilities, what motivates me, and how best I can tackle my goals going forward. I did get back into the draft eventually in about the middle of the month of November. And for that, I'm grateful. I'm glad to be working again. I'm glad to be writing. It does feel good to be back in a sort of rhythm. It feels good to be making videos again. So in that way, I'm grateful to have left behind that horrible depressive episode and be moving forward. Another area that was affected by that episode was, of course, my reading. I had realized probably around the beginning of the episode that I was pushing myself too hard with regards to my reading goals. 2 books a week is probably very achievable for someone who isn't also working full-time, also a parent of 3 kids and having to maintain that part of my life, also trying to write and do content. I simply cannot read 2 books a week and do all of those other things. And ultimately, since writing is the ultimate goal for me, I had to cut back somewhere. And in the end, reading is just the most expendable. I hate that. I want to keep reading. I was really looking forward to hitting a huge book goal at the end of the year, but I think the pressure I was putting on myself to read that much and hit those deadlines and make those videos ended up contributing to what ended up being the depressive episode. I was not sleeping very well because I was staying up late reading. I was cutting back on things that I enjoyed in order to cram more books in, even when I wasn't really liking the books. And I think the pressure made me like the books less. So unfortunately, I did have to cut back on that. However, since then, I have made some decisions regarding my reading that I'm kind of excited about. First, that I'm going to try and annotate every single book that I own physically. It's not really that much, at least compared to some other booktubers on here. Probably only 100 books. Obviously, this is not something I'm intending on doing overnight or very quickly. This will take me years and years, especially as I continue to add to my library. But I have wanted to get into annotating. Booktubers I admire annotate very thoroughly, and it's just something that I think will help me appreciate the stories I'm consuming better, because as I have mentioned before, I'm not a super visual reader. It takes extra effort for me to kind of imagine what's going on the page rather than just consuming them as words on a page. And annotating, at least the last 2 books that I've done, has really helped me sink a little bit more into the story and more into the setting than I had before, especially when I was like trying to speed read through it. So annotating has already helped me appreciate the books that I'm reading more. And so I am looking forward to continuing that trend in December and into 2025. And then finally, my reflections on this channel. October ended up being my biggest growth in terms of subscribers in the lifetime of this channel. Something about the end of September rolling into October, I just got this huge bump for some reason, and I was really riding that wave. And then of course everything came crashing down with a depressive episode and everything kind of ground to a halt. And I've kind of been at the same subscriber level since mid-October, which I'm not complaining about. I never expected to be someone with a huge following anyway. I'm grateful for every single person who watches my videos. It was just such a huge surprise to see those numbers tick steadily up at the beginning of October that I had hoped it would continue. But of course, as my content trickled down and eventually stopped, so did the subscribership. Makes sense. I'm not mad at it, especially since I do this just for fun, not to gain any sort of notoriety or platform. Like I said, it was just a surprise. And I think it was kind of fun to realize that I am reaching people that I never thought that I would. I think the biggest surprise recently with regards to the channel is how well received my video on Drabbles was. That video I intended to kind of show off how I write Drabbles. I had screen recorded the process of me writing each Drabble, including like going through and editing and trying to narrow them down or fluff them up to reach exactly 100 words. And unfortunately, me being a not technical person didn't realize that the screen recording did not record the right window. And so all I was recording essentially was like an empty Google search and not my Word document. So that was a huge bummer, but that video still ended up getting a huge amount of views and some new followers off of it. So that was really, really gratifying because I love Drabbles. I love them so much. I talked about it in that video. I think they are a great little nugget of creativity that when you're feeling worn out creatively, or if you feel like you have too much energy and you don't know where to like siphon it off, Drabbles are a great way to do that. And I have been trying for a long time to kind of integrate Drabbles into like my author brand. And so seeing that that was so well received really gave me hope that once I kind of figure all this stuff out, my identity as a creator and a writer, and as I continue to grow this platform, that'll be something that we can do. One thing that I would really love to do is like create a community event where we all write Drabbles, maybe 30 Drabbles in 30 days kind of thing. But that is future plans, definitely not for December, way into the future once I kind of spend a little bit more effort figuring out who I want to be as a creator and my identity. So for the next part of this reset, I'm going to do something I have been wanting to do for a while now, and that is reorganize this other side of my bookshelf. It wasn't really being used except for like storage. I had some notebooks on there and some stray nonfiction books. Then of course down here, my manga and other anime paraphernalia. But I was getting, it was sort of ugly to look at, and I was always trying to angle the camera away from it because it wasn't attractive as a filming space. And then I thought, I've been getting all these fairy loot books that are just going up on my shelf outside of my bedroom because they should be looked at, and so they're in this common area, but they're not really looked at there either. It's kind of in a nook that no one's really going into or looking at, and then they're crammed onto a shelf. Anyway, so I figured I would turn the shelf into a more attractive looking space, put some of my prettier editions up so that way it's not so distressing to look at for me and I can use it again. So this is my new space. It's much nicer for me to look at. Even when I'm just like laying in bed reading, I can look up and be like, oh, it's not just kind of haphazard like storage area for notebooks. So for the next part of this reset, what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about my content plans. For the first time in a long time, I actually sat down and planned out the entire month of content for the month of December. I feel like December is probably the easiest month to do that in, since we're all doing reading wrap-ups and like year-end superlatives and everything like that. That helped. And also the fact that all my Friday videos are always going to be writing vlogs. So first up, as you can see on the second, we had a reading vlog that was intended to get me back on track with my reading goals. That didn't quite work out. If you've watched that video, you already know. Then of course, today on the 4th is this video, the Cozy Reset. No surprises there. On the 6th, we've got my as per usual weekly reading vlog. Again, no surprises. Then on the 9th, we've got another Adventures with Annotating. Then on the 11th, a return of my Card Captor Sakura Comfort rewatch. This time episodes 7 through 9. Again, on the 13th, another writing vlog. Then on the 16th, I'll be doing another tarot card book recommendation. On the 18th, I plan on having another week in my life sort of just lifestyle vlog. On the 20th, again, a writing vlog. Then on the 23rd, I am going to be doing a 3x3x3 of books I want to read in 2025. Skipping the 25th, of course, because that is Christmas. And then on the 27th, my final writing vlog of the year, and rounding out December with my year-end superlatives on the 30th. I'm really excited about some of these videos. That 3x3x3 scares me a little though. The last 3x3x3 I did was a lot of work, and I had to really strain myself to think of 3 categories, 3 subcategories, 3 entries for each of those things. And I don't know if I know 27 books that I want to read next year, but I'm going to figure it out. So I'm really excited about that one. I also had surprisingly a fair amount of fun doing just a week in my life vlog. So I'm weirdly looking forward to doing that again as well. And then of course, my year-end superlatives. And so that's it for my content plans. I'm really excited about the momentum that it will give me going into the new year. It was actually really tempting to keep going and keep planning videos for January, but I decided to hold back and kind of reassess where I'm at and reassess what I would like to do as I move into the new year. Again, I kind of like to use December as a beta test for some of my new ideas to see if it's feasible, especially during one of the busiest times of the year with the holidays. My son's birthday is also in December, and it's also a very busy time at my job. Just in terms of the season, it's busier, and also the end of the year in my particular position always taxes me extra. So that's why I like to use December as a beta test, because if I can pull it off in December, I know I can pull it off in the other months. And to that end, one of the ideas I am thinking about trying this December is a return to bi-weekly live stream writing sprints. I see this all the time with other writers. I wish I could participate, but they always seem to fall during hours where I just can't because of all the aforementioned obligations. My kids especially have a ton of extracurricular activities in the evenings. Also, I am horrifically shy. I know it doesn't seem like I'm shy because I tend to talk a lot, but like with other people in front of me, I am a little bit of a clam, but I like the idea. And I like the idea of sitting down every other Friday when my kids are with their dad specifically, which means there's a limit on distractions, and making myself work. The last time I did live streams, I think I had like maybe 18 followers. So maybe this time some of you friends would like to come along. I haven't really decided where I've fallen on if I'm going to do them or not, but that is something I'm considering. The first one would not be until next weekend. They would definitely be on Friday nights, probably from 7 to 9 p.m. Central Time. That is just something I'm kicking around, and if I decide to do it, obviously all the details will be on the channel. For this next part, I wasn't even sure I should do this because of what I said earlier about paring back my reading, but I decided I am going to because it's fun. It's interesting to talk about, and I am planning on reading this month, just not as much as before. So we're gonna do a little TBR. It's 6 books, which is my monthly goal that I started out with, which is just over a book a week, something I could do. The only reason I'm going even that far is because I'm already partially through 2 of the books on this list. Now, for this TBR, I have also decided to go all the way back to the beginning of the year when I decided I would set a specific way of constructing my TBRs based on categories, and I would pick books from each category to make up my TBR of 6. I kind of fell away from that because it stopped being as fun and motivating for me, particularly the non-fantasy books. I struggled to think of which non-fantasy books I would even want to read. I am a fantasy reader. That is pretty much the only thing that interests me right now. So to that end, I've actually modified the list a little bit to give myself a little bit of an easier time to hit 6 books in December. For the series continuation category, I will be reading The Last Graduate by Naomi Novik. Again, I'm cheating on this one because I'm already 50% of the way through. I picked this up at the beginning of October, and then the slump and the depressive episode and everything else hit. And then since then, I've read a couple more books and for some reason haven't picked this one back up. I really enjoyed A Deadly Education way more than I expected when I read it, I think in August. And usually I like to take some time off between entries, but right after I finished A Deadly Education, I bought the other 2 books in the series. And when they arrived in the mail, I immediately opened The Last Graduate and started reading it. I was able to pull myself back and then pick it up again in October. But with everything going on, I haven't returned to it and I need to. I want to read this book. I want to finish this series. It is a priority. So for my library read, I have chosen A Dark and Drowning Tide by Alison Saft. Again, cheating just a little bit because I've already started it. I am about 12% of the way through and I have to actually read it pretty quickly because my loan is running out. Again, this will be the second time I've picked it up and haven't been able to get through it. For my new release, I will be reading The Phoenix Keeper by S.A. McLean. This one is a little bit of a gamble because I believe it is a cozy fantasy and I haven't really gotten on with those of late, but phoenixes are my favorite magical creature. I have one tattooed on my back. I am interested just for the title alone. I believe it's also sapphic, so we're gonna roll the dice on it. But this is another one that I've picked up a couple of times from the library. My loan elapsed, and then I've had to get back on the list for it. And then I replaced non-fantasy with an audiobook. As you all know, I struggle with audiobooks. I think I can probably do one a month. That audiobook category, I have chosen Trial of the Sun Queen by Nisha J. Tooley. This is a romantasy. I have heard it compared to ACOTAR, which means it probably isn't to my taste, but that is the other thing about audiobooks. I find that books that normally don't appeal to me, I can tolerate a little bit better on audio, possibly because part of my brain isn't engaging with it in the way that I would if I were reading it with my eyes because of that disconnect from my ears. I think that this is one that I can just mindlessly enjoy without thinking too hard about it, which I think is my problem with romantasy is I get too hung up on the details instead of like the fun whisk you away fantasy romance. We'll try it. That's another one I've already started. You'll notice a trend with these. I've already started a lot of them. I'm only like 10% of the way in, again, making my way very slowly through it. And so far I'm not mad at it. And then for my free choice, I have chosen Kingdom of Sweets by Erica Johansson. And specifically because this is a Nutcracker retelling, or at least adjacent to the Nutcracker, so I have to read it in December. The Nutcracker is something I associate very strongly with my childhood. My grandmother was very, very much passionate about the Nutcracker. She had Nutcracker like decorations all over her house at Christmas. We always used to read the story. So there is a little bit of nostalgia associated with the Nutcracker. I did enjoy the only other book I've read from Erica Johansson, which is The Queen of the Tearling. So I think that I probably could enjoy this as well. And again, it's seasonal, so now is the perfect time. I didn't get to read it last December when it came out, so it's happening this year. And then we get to go back to one of my favorite parts of constructing a TBR, and that is choosing a random book out of my TBR Mimic. When I did this recently to choose a random book to help me catch up on my reading goal, I realized how much I missed like the anticipation of picking something completely random that I had no control over. It allows me to like maybe pick something that I wouldn't otherwise have thought of. And truthfully, that's really part of the fun of doing the random draw. So we're gonna give him a little shake. Now, caveats. There are books in here that I've already read and just haven't drawn the number. There are books in here that are later parts of a series that I can't read because I haven't read the earlier parts of the series. And there are books in here that I may already have plans for. I am planning on reading a not insignificant amount of the books on this shelf because of my annotation project. If I draw a book that fits in any one of those categories, I'll probably discard and try again. With that in mind, we're gonna mix it up. I like this one here. Let's see what we got. Wouldn't you know it, I drew 185 again, which if you watched my video on Daughter of the Moon Goddess, you know I drew 185 that time too. And I can already tell you that it is The Call of the Bone Ships by R.J. Barker, and I have already tagged the first book in that series. I think it's just called The Bone Ships. As a reread. I am looking for them physically so I can annotate them. I really enjoyed The Bone Ships and I want to add it to my shelf. So I will not be reading that one just yet. Isn't that weird how that happens? I shook it, didn't I? Like, that just tells you like how full this thing is that shaking it isn't really shuffling it as much as one would hope. Here's a new number. It is 122. This is probably another physical. Oh, it is. So for the random read, I have drawn A Study in Drowning by Ava Reed. And unfortunately, I have to confront something that very sad that happened to me, which is this is the Illumicrate version. And I can't even remember how it happened, but it is water damaged. I'm sure a cat spilled a drink or something, water on it, but I was devastated because this was I think this is like my first Illumicrate book. No, I think it was my second, but it was very early on and I was just heartbroken that it was damaged. And since then I just sort of put it on my shelf and forgot about it because it was so devastating. But it's time to put that trauma behind me and finally read this lovely, gorgeous copy of A Study in Drowning. Oh my gosh, this TBR slaps. I don't know about you. So that is my TBR. I'm pretty excited about it. I've got some books that I have been looking forward to, and several of them I've already started, which gives me a great head start. Okay, I think that's everything except my goals for the new month. And we've already talked a little bit about some of them. But for me, when I am embarking upon a new month and as we move into the new year, I am thinking of three things, creatively speaking. Like obviously I have other goals, but you know, you don't need to know that I want to drink more water and walk on my walking pad more. That's just a given. Creatively speaking, I am thinking of three specific things: reading, writing, and content creation. Starting with writing because I am trying to do everything I can to reframe that as the most important thing. I have three main goals for writing. One is a super achievable one that I think I will probably reach pretty early in the month. Another one that I think is also achievable, but it will require me to stretch just a little bit. But I think that if I do it, I'll be well on my way to creating a good habit. And the third is definitely a stretch goal, one that I would be a little bit surprised if I reach, but I'm hoping that by setting that goal, it will encourage me to push myself farther. The first goal is to break the 25,000 word barrier that has held me back on all of my projects thus far in the last 5 years. I have not been able to push myself past the 25,000 word mark in any project since I completed my first draft in 2019, 18. It's been a long time. And I think part of it is boredom, something about getting past that exciting first act and moving into the middle part drains away the excitement. Part of it is I plan so heavily for that first act, and then I realize as I move into the middle part that I don't have as many good ideas. I did try to pants one book once and hit again that 25,000 word wall and realize I need to plan ahead. It has just been a thorn in my side for years, breaking through that 25,000 word barrier. And Through my efforts with my writing vlogs over the last now 7 months, I have done more work towards finishing a first draft than I ever have before, even though I'm only 20,000 words into the first draft. I have created detailed outlines. I've done hundreds of hours of world building. I'm ready to finally break that barrier. And I believe I can do this pretty quickly because I'm already at 21,000 words. So if I just push myself over the next week or two, I will get through that. And then the key will be to continue to build on that and get past the 25,000 words and not stall out yet again. My second goal for writing is to write 25 days out of 31. And those 6 days that I am giving myself as leeway or a grace period are very specific. They are every Friday and Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. Christmas Eve and Christmas Day speak for themselves. Christmas Eve, my family does a big family gathering in the evening times. I'll probably have to work a half day and then we'll be spending time with my family in the evening. And then of course, Christmas Day, I will be with my partner and my kids. So understandable. Every Friday is a different sort of thing where I have realized that I tend to not want to work on Fridays. I want to come home after a long week of work and put on sweatpants and lay in bed and watch sports or YouTube or scroll on my phone, or it's something that isn't work. Something I'm hopeful to work on in the new year is moving past that barrier and at least giving myself maybe 30 minutes. But for now, I'm giving myself the grace to say on Fridays, especially as we move into a month that is much busier in terms of like family obligations and at work, to say I don't want to work anymore on Friday evenings. That being said, because I have picked out those days specifically, I don't have hardly any room for error. So I have to be really like focused on setting down and writing every single day, even if it's only for 20 minutes, and making sure that I'm building that habit. With that in mind, writing consistently 25 out of 31 days. And then lastly, my stretch goal will be to hit the halfway mark of this manuscript, which would be 45,000 words. That would mean writing 25,000 words in this month of December, which again would mean, based on my previous goal of writing 25 days out of 31, is writing 1,000 words a day. How did we end up back here? It wasn't on purpose, but I was thinking of stretch goals and thinking about where I would like to be going into the new year. And I really would like to be at the halfway mark. And I just so happen to be at 21,000 words right now. Again, I'm not anticipating this actually happening, but I am hoping that by setting that goal, I am pushing myself to work harder than I would normally. And if I can get even to like 38,000, I think I will have given myself a good confidence boost in my ability to write and write consistently. Okay, we don't have a lot of time left because guess what? I have been yapping for far too long. So let's get through these next goals. My next goal is, I wrote this down before I realized I had made an egregious math error. My next goal reading wise was to hit a 70 book mark for the year. And that was before I realized that I have only read like 56 books this year. I misinterpreted, like I knew what I was reading, but I just didn't process it in my brain. And I saw that I was 11 books behind of my ultimate goal, which was 75. And in my head, I was like, oh, that must mean I'm at 65 books. And so I only have to read 5 books. But no, I'm 11 books behind, plus the books I was supposed to read in December, which would have been 6. So I'm in trouble. I'm almost certainly not going to hit this goal. What I would like to do is read all the books on the TBR that I just mentioned. I'm also in the middle of another book for a different vlog that I didn't include on my TBR. That would give me 7, and that would put me at, let's see, let me make sure I'm not lying to you. Yeah, I'm currently at 57. So that would put me at 64. Okay, my battery died, so we're gonna do the rest of this on my phone. There really isn't that much left. Anyway, if I can read those 7 books, the 6 I mentioned, plus the one I'm already in the middle of for a vlog, that will put me at 64. And while that isn't the nice doubling of my previous year's reading total, I think that's pretty respectable for someone who only read 35 books in 2023 and only like 12 the year before that. I've been trying to get back into my reading habit, and this year I have really made leaps and bounds. I stalled out in some areas. I hit that reading slump in March and April and part of May. And then, of course, the depressive episode knocked me out. So I'm not ashamed of not hitting that goal, especially with everything else that that's been going on. And maybe I'll surprise myself and pick up a few more in December. So that's my only reading goal. Read these 7 books. And lastly, my content creation goals and aspirations. I am still kicking around the idea of doing live streams on Friday. That would kind of contradict everything I just said about my writing goals and like giving myself Fridays off. I still have to weigh whether or not that's something I'm going to be able to do, just because I know how I feel about Fridays. I know how I feel when I come home on Fridays, especially on Fridays when I don't have the kids, and that means I don't have to cook. I don't have to entertain. I don't have to mediate. I don't have to do any of those things. I can just come home and truly get in bed and not do anything else. And so those hours are pretty precious. I'm still thinking about it. That is something I'm considering. My next goal isn't really a goal because it's almost completely out of my hands, and that is to continue to grow my channel. I would love to hit 200 subscribers by the end of the year. That's a pretty big ask because I'm sitting currently at 245, and my biggest month so far in the life of this channel was October when I got like 40. So I don't necessarily think that's going to happen, but it would be nice. I think a more realistic goal would be maybe to hit 175, and then I would be exactly halfway from my last milestone to my next milestone, which for me I consider to be 250. If you like my content, please like and subscribe. That's not really something I can control. I am just going to continue doing what I have always done, making the content I want to make in the way that I want to make it, and if it appeals to people, great, and if not, that's great too. It's really about having fun with the creation. But it sure would be nice to hit 200 by the end of the year. And then my main goal truly for my channel is to use it to make friends. And I think that I have said this in different ways and in different videos in the past where I'm not very good at social media, and that has made finding a community and specific clusters of people to connect with very difficult for me. It's not that they're not there, and it's not that they don't want me there. It's just that I struggle to ingratiate myself because I'm shy. I have social anxiety in addition to all my other anxieties, and I'm a private person, and I don't do social media. If you look at my linked socials below, you will find that I pretty much only use them to promote videos. Over the last like week or two, I have really concentrated and been very specific about seeking out other writers and authors on YouTube, and more specifically than that, authors and writers with channels that are smaller. I have no doubt that the larger channels have vast wisdom that they can dispense and that they're very entertaining, but I'm looking more for someone who I can more closely relate with, and those would be the smaller creators, people who are just starting on their content creation journey or maybe on their first draft. Those are the kinds of creators that I want to connect with. And so I've been very intentional about finding recommendations for those smaller channels, following them, and trying my best to engage with them. Again, it's a little bit difficult for me. So if you see me leaving just like a very like small comment with just the emoji that you request at the end, that's me, A, recognizing that the comments are helping your algorithm, and B, showing that I want to engage. I just don't know how. If you're a smaller author, tuber like me, I would love to connect. I don't care what genre you write. I'm more interested in commiserating on the peaks and valleys of the journey of writing a book and trying to use YouTube to motivate yourself, because that is definitely what I am doing, especially with my writing vlogs. If you're one of those creators, or if you know one and you think I should be following them, please drop your ats below. I am actively seeking out those kinds of channels. And like I said, I don't care what you write. I don't care if your writing vlogs are just a still camera pointed at your keyboard while you type with music in the background. I don't care if they include no writing at all and you're just bitching about how your day job is interfering with your writing. I do that a lot. I'm here for you. I want to support you. Please let me know. That is my biggest goal, is to put myself out there a little bit more and position myself better to forge closer ties that in a way that I have not yet been able to do on the internet. That is truly my biggest goal. Oh my gosh, this video is like 8,000 years long, and I'm really just excited for the new year, to be honest with you. For now, thank you so much for watching. If you're still here, I so appreciate it. If you like my content and want to support the channel, please like and subscribe and consider leaving a comment below. I am willing to yap to you about pretty much anything. In my next video, I will have a weekly writing vlog, and I have made a concentrated effort to write, first of all, this week and film extra content for the vlog. So I hope you look forward to it, and I will see you then. Bye.